First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
As the 2024 hurricane season approaches its peak months, a large tropical wave near the Virgin Islands could pose a threat to Florida. This is WFT's First at 5. I'm Kade Sowers.
And I'm Sarah Howard. The National Hurricane Center says it has a 60% chance of becoming a better defined system by next week. Right now, the system is still a broad area of disorganized rain and thunderstorms. Forecasters say it will move toward the Bahamas next week with potential impacts to most of Florida. The National Weather Service meteorologist Mark Wool says now is the time to get prepared for any possible storms.
We're getting into the peak of hurricane season. August, September, and October are the busiest months. We've already had 3 named storms, but none for a while now, so people may have let their guard down.
And residents, particularly along the East Coast, are advised to monitor the system, which could be named Debbie if it strengthens.
And to hear more about the potential for Debbie to form, let's get right over to UF forecaster Desiree who's tracking the latest movements with this system.
The National Hurricane Center is continuing to watch this unorganized activity right here over Puerto Rico. It has the potential to move into Florida, but it's about a 60% chance of it becoming a tropical cyclone in the next several days. But we don't know which way it can go. It could go east of Florida or it could go to the west of Florida. That's something that we are still tracking. And looking at our storm tracker here, right now in Alachua County, we're experiencing some showers currently. Gilchrist County also experiencing a couple of showers as well. Looking at our hour by hour, going into 7 p.m., about a 60% chance of rain. 9 p.m. is going to go down to about 20% chance of rain as we go into tomorrow, early tomorrow morning. And then later up this afternoon, we're going to talk about evening rain, dangerous heat, and weekend showers coming up.
A Florida man is scheduled to be executed next month. Earlier this week, Governor Ron DeSantis signed the death warrant for 57-year-old Lauren Cole. He was convicted of kidnapping adult siblings camping in the Ocala National Forest in 1994 before sexually assaulting the sister and murdering her brother. Authorities say Cole and a friend befriended the 2 college students as they camped and then jumped them. The sister survived her injuries. Cole will be executed by lethal injection on August 28th at Florida State Prison. It's the first execution this year.
And the state fire marshal is working to determine what caused an explosion at an Ocala laundromat that injured 4 people last night. The explosion happened at the Classic Laundromat on Northeast 25th Avenue. That's just a few blocks away from Silver Springs Boulevard. The explosion caused damage to 7 nearby shops, leaving them inaccessible. Ocala Fire Rescue, the Ocala Police Department, Marion County Fire Rescue, and Tico Gas responded to the scene. 2 of the 4 injured were sent to the hospital and have since been released. The cause of the explosion is under investigation.
A new poll from the University of North Florida shows that 2 major Florida amendments are likely to pass if the election were held today. The survey consists of nearly 800 Florida voters, 41% being Republican, 35% Democrats, and 24% were independent. Amendment 4 would preserve the right to abortion in the Florida Constitution. According to the poll of those surveyed, nearly 70% said that they would vote yes. Amendment 3 would allow for recreational use of marijuana for adults 21 and older. The poll shows that 64% of those surveyed would also vote yes. Both amendments need 60% of the votes in order to pass.
Vice President Harris is working to secure her running mate as the pair plan to hit the campaign trail together in less than a week. Meanwhile, former President Trump is in Chicago to answer questions at the National Association of Black Journalists. As Alice Barr reports, Trump's courting of voters comes as his VP candidate is facing more scrutiny over past comments.
Former President Trump in a conversation turned combative today at the National Association of Black Journalists convention in Chicago, on defense over a question about his past comments that some consider racially charged.
I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit.
Asked whether he agrees with Republican lawmakers who've cast Vice President Kamala Harris as a DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion candidate.
I mean, I really don't know. Could be. There are some.
Also questioning the vice president's racial identity.
She was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
Vice President Harris not attending the conference, but talks are underway for a Q&A in September, the same month as the next scheduled presidential debate, though Mr. Trump has cast doubt over whether he'll participate. The vice president challenging him to meet her on the debate stage.
Because as the saying goes, if you've got something to say,
That before a fired-up crowd of thousands in Atlanta last night. Georgia, one of the critical battleground states where a new poll has the vice president gaining ground against former President Trump, who is stepping up his attacks, arguing foreign adversaries will view her as weak.
I think they'll walk all over her. She'll be so easy for them. She'll be like a play toy.
Also targeting the vice president's record on the border, as she and allies, including potential running mate pick Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, slam Mr. Trump for tanking a bipartisan border bill.
Because he wanted to have this as an election issue.
Vice President Harris expected to announce her running mate within a week. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
After dozens of shark attacks this year, Alabama Senator Kade Britt says people have a right to know if there is a shark attack in their area and plans to introduce legislation to alert swimmers. Senator Britt proposed legislation that would create text alerts when there is a shark attack nearby. She wants to name this legislation after Lulu Gribben, a 15-year-old from Alabama who was attacked by a shark in Florida back in June. Senator Britt says that her proposal is common sense and would help keep families safe.
And those planning on donating blood, beware of OneBlood. The organization announced they were recently a target of a ransomware attack that has affected their software system. OneBlood has yet to release more information to gauge if there has been a data leak of personal information, but company spokesperson Susan Forbes says that if personal information has been compromised, they will provide a credit monitoring service for donors. Despite all of this, they are still operating, but at a reduced capacity.
If you're an Ocala electric utility customer, you may be receiving credit to your account. Due to a new city ordinance starting in August, customers will see their initial sign-up deposit transferred back into their account. To be eligible for this credit, customers must have 24 months of consecutive service, a payment history with fewer than 2 penalties, and no return checks and no delinquencies for 12 consecutive months. If you are not currently eligible, you can still qualify after 12 months of satisfactory service. Coming up next when First at 5 returns, the state of the economy in the headlines, why economists say consumers may have to wait a while longer to see some relief on home and car loan interest rates.
And preparing to head back into the classroom, the tips for parents to make the change as smooth as possible this year.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is expected to address the state of the economy after the Fed wrapped up a 2-day meeting today. Experts say September seems to be the more likely time frame for the Fed's first rate cut since the COVID-19 pandemic. Rate hikes have taken place the last few years to battle rising inflation, and as Karen Kaifa explains, consumers are waiting for relief on everything from mortgages to car loans.
With progress on inflation, the Federal Reserve inching closer to bringing its benchmark interest rate down from a 23-year peak. But Greg McBride, chief financial analyst for Bankrate, says households should know those rate cuts will come slowly, and just 1 or 2 won't dramatically reduce consumers' interest payments.
So if you have high-cost credit card debt or even a home equity line of credit, many of which have rates in the double digits right now, you need to continue to prioritize paying down that debt aggressively.
McBride says households waiting for more favorable terms on loans can use this time to make sure their credit is in prime shape.
Make sure your credit rating is in the best possible position that it can be so you can qualify for the most competitive rates. Comparison shop, not only for the financing, but for the vehicle, for the home. Negotiate, make sure you're not overpaying on price.
Jacob Channel, senior housing economist for LendingTree, says it's a good time for potential home buyers to do their research.
The Fed is lowering rates. Mortgage rates are probably going to come down too. And like people always say, real estate is local. So look at what's going on in your broader market.
Channel also says whatever the borrowing landscape, it's important for consumers to set their own comfort zone.
At the end of the day, what matters most is what your personal finances look like, what you can truly afford, what you'd be comfortable borrowing.
In Washington, I'm Karen Kaifa.
We're heading into the back-to-school season, and the start of a new year can be challenging for some students. Experts say making preparations now can help. Mandy Gaither shares tips on how to help students transition back into the classroom.
Putting away the bathing suits and packing the book bags may feel different for each student.
It's normal for them to have all kinds of emotions.
Strong for Life licensed therapist Jody Baumstein says as students head back to the classroom, gauge how they're feeling by asking open-ended questions and then Simply listen.
We think we need to swoop in and save them from the feeling. But when we say things like, don't worry, it's going to be fine, it doesn't make anybody feel better. It actually makes them feel worse because now they feel like there's something wrong with them. They shouldn't feel that way, and you don't get it.
Baumstein says returning to school can be nerve-wracking for some because of the unknown, so help by filling in the blanks.
So thinking about things like going to meet the teacher night or going and taking a tour of the school if it's a new space, this is really important because a lot of kids have anxiety about the physical space.
Routines are important for children, so Baumstein says to start getting back into one. If summer bedtimes are different, inch back to where they should be before the first day of school. If there are new school supplies, practice using them so students are comfortable. And she says to keep the conversation going throughout the school year. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Do you have a Gainesville area bucket list? Well, if you didn't, you certainly do now. The series of guides, 100 Things to Do Before You Die, just came out with a Gainesville version. There are obvious things like going to the Gator football games or visiting Payne's Prairie, but you might not have thought of feeding retired horses at Mill Creek Farm. As the title of the book suggests, there are 100 local activities listed, including all kinds of food venues, parks, and shops. Lauren Gonzalez, a local travel blogger who grew up in Gainesville, wrote the book.
I feel very honored to be the one to write this book, and I think going back to my roots as a travel writer really helped me to be able to write this, and growing up here and getting the perspectives of a lot of different people, whether they've been born and raised here and lived there their whole lives, or new people that have come to town that I've met, they've all helped me kind of write this book.
Gonzalez is holding several book signing events this month. There's one tomorrow evening from 5 to 8 at Swamp Head Brewery.
Heavy rain with lightning and thunder continue across north central Florida. Our track the storms up next.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Taking a look at our storm tracker currently right now across central Florida, north central Florida, is a couple of showers sprinkled out. You can see a couple of more thunderstorms happening up there in Tallahassee. Taking a closer look in Alachua County, we have some couple of storms sprinkled out in Newberry and Archer, a little bit down in Usher as well. A couple of more, you can see some reds and oranges up there in Booker as well. Now we're going to go ahead and go into our last 7 days. There have been quite the rainfall, about over a ½ inch in this area here. Gainesville, Archer, and Adam also getting over a ½ foot of rainfall in the last 7 days. Compared to the other parts of Florida, it's a little bit more in this area here in the central region here. And down here in Sanford and D-Land only getting about 3 inches, up in Perry only 4.5. Now looking at our future track right now, Wednesday going into the evening, we're going to experience some showers. Cross City getting some showers as well. Now when we go into the midnight, we're going to get some more from the north over I-10. Gainesville experiencing a little bit more showers. Those are going to kind of fan out, but then they're going to come back around lunchtime tomorrow afternoon. They could go into Cross City and Chiefland as well. Those are going to go again, and then they may come back until Thursday evening a little bit more, but those will dissipate. Taking a look at our Century Tower camera right now in Gainesville, we don't have too many clouds. They're kind of going away. It's about 85 degrees, but it feels like 95 degrees with about 8 miles per hour winds coming in from the west. We're going to keep talking about our temperatures. It's about 86 degrees here in Gainesville, 91 in Ocala in the Villages as well. A little bit warmer up in Jacksonville, Florida at 94. There is a heat advisory up until 7 p.m. That is going to be the west of us in Perry and Tallahassee. We're going to keep our eyes on that, a heat advisory until 7 p.m. tonight. Going until tomorrow, it's going to be a warm start, and then midday it's going to be some developing showers, some scattered storms going into about 4 p.m. And then going into our weekend, Saturday and Sunday, about a 40% chance of rain on Saturday. On Sunday, that's going to go up a little bit more to about 70%. That is going to kind of keep on trend into our next 7 days, about a 70% chance of rain going into next week. And then those temperatures are going to stay in the low 90s, about 92 going into the weekend and then next week as well. Wednesday going down to 20% and about a 77. It's going to be a little bit cooler on Wednesday, but we're going to keep with that hot and muggy theme all the way up until about next week, and those rain chances going to fall. And that is your Wednesday weather with Waters.
We're now officially a week into the 2024 Olympic Games, but this year's competition still looks to be as hotly contested as ever before. See how the United States has fared so far in today's competitions and more after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
I'm Jack Meyer here with everything you need to know about what's going on in the wide world of sports today. We're starting off right here in the heart of Florida as the Gators football team took to the turf this morning for its first official practice of the 2024 season. Florida is exactly 1 month away from kicking off its 2024 campaign, and from the looks of it, the Gators are ready to go. The UF has now finished with a losing record in 3 years in a row, marking the program's longest streak of seasons under 500 since 1947. Entering his third year with the Gators, head coach Billy Napier is well aware of the stakes in what could be a make-or-break 2024 campaign. Nevertheless, Napier remains optimistic for what he believes will be a fall camp to remember for his squad.
This camp will be the most competitive camp that we've had since I've been at the University of Florida. We have more competitive depth, we have more experience, and certainly we have a challenge in front of us that we look forward to.
The Gators will start off their 2024 season with a Sunshine State showdown against the Miami Hurricanes. The two squads are set to meet at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium on August 31st, with kickoff time set for 3:30 p.m. Both the Florida's pro squads have made plenty of shakeups to their rosters in the last week, with all signs pointing towards a focus on the future for both the Tampa Bay Rays and the Miami Marlins. Entering the 2024 campaign having made 5 straight playoff appearances, this season has gone less than according to plan for the Rays. Tampa Bay currently sits at 4th place in the American League East with 55 wins and 52 losses. With their postseason odds looking slim, the Rays elected to break up their current roster core, sending away big names such as Randy Arozarena and Zach Eflin over the last week. Meanwhile, the Miami Marlins made their rebuild intentions clear from the get-go this year. After trading away reigning National League batting champion Luis Arraez last May, Miami currently holds the 3rd worst record in all of Major League Baseball, with 39 wins and 68 losses. The Marlins only dug deeper into their ongoing rebuild at this year's deadline, shipping away MLB All-Stars Jazz Chisholm, Tanner Scott, and Trevor Rogers. And finally, tomorrow marks the return of the NFL. Well, sort of. The Chicago Bears will play host to the Houston Texans in the Pro Football Hall of Fame game to kick off the 2024 preseason.
Well, it's been 6 months since the Super Bowl, so it's good to see football coming back around.
Absolutely. Even if it's just preseason, we'll just take what we can get at this point.
Before we go, let's have one last check on the weather.
Currently right now, we're still looking at some rain chances going into the weekend. Thursday and Friday, 70% chance of rain. That's going to continue with some showers this weekend and a mild temperatures in the low 90s as we go into next week.
Thanks, Desiree, and thanks for joining us. Today is the final edition of First at 5 for the summer.
Newscast will return on September 3rd, but remember, your North Central Florida news is always on at WFT.org and on all our social media platforms. Have a good night.